perk changes information has finally been released, and therefore we're gonna be talking about it on today's video. Quick refresher if you don't know what I'm talking about. BHVR during their anniversary stream has mentioned that they're looking into give or take 40 perks of the game to nerf and buff. Their focus went especially onto the meta perks. Before we get started with the video, hello, welcome in or welcome back. My name is Sharon and I am a legacy-free near-main with nearly 9,000 hours in Dead by Daylight. I primarily stream DBD on twitch.tv/Sharon and I upload consistently on this YouTube channel with lots of different DBD content. Hope you enjoy your stay and let's get started with the video, shall we? So, there's a lot to talk about, and obviously you are not here to watch a 1 hour long video, so I will try my best to be as quick and precise as possible. Before we get started with the main attraction of today's video, which are the perk changes, let's start off with a quick information of the changes they're planning on adding towards the base game. This might also help to understand the perk changes more. First thing up, for the killers, they are changing the generator speed. They're making it so it takes 90 seconds to power a generator instead of 80 seconds, adding an overall 50 seconds extra to the game to complete all the generators. Secondly, they're making it so kicking a generator as a killer without a specific perk instantly removes 2.5% of the progress, which will make kicking more valuable for killers and less of a time waste. They're also reducing the time it takes to break walls, pallets, and generators by making it 10% faster than what it now is. And they're tweaking blood loss numbers to make tier 2 and tier 3 a little bit faster, hoping the chases will last less long. And for the survivor, they are actually gonna add base kit board time to the game, and it's pretty dope. Now, without a specific perk, unhooking a survivor gives the unhooked survivor a board time effect for 5 seconds, called the endurance effect. And the survivor that got unhooked also get a 7% haste effect for 5 seconds. So a little quick sprint burst to get away from the killer quicker. Now keep in mind, performing any action, minus running away from the killer and vaulting and throwing pallets of course, will instantly remove all those buffs. So that's a pretty dope change and hopefully it will promote killers to go for the unhooker instead. Now onto the perk changes. Let's start with the non-meta perks who got buffed and that I actually like the buff off. I will put the before and after text on the screen. First up, Hope, Lucky Break, and Lightweight. Hope's buff is quite nice because it's a one and done kind of perk and it only starts at the end game, so the buff is quite appreciated. Lucky Break is a perk that I wanted to use and now I might actually use it. It's a good change that you can actually regain your Lucky Break progression. And Lightweight, whilst Lightweight buff is a little bit underwhelming, it's still a good buff overall. Next up, Saboteur, Tenacity, and No One Left Behind. Saboteur is a good buff, and many people have asked for it. However, I foresee trouble. Killers are gonna get pissed off that people are gonna sabotage more, but maybe this will disencourage people for actually running Scorch Hooks, which would be a win in my book. Tenacity's buff is huge and much appreciated. It's great that killers now can lose their slugs easier, which makes slugging maybe less ideal for them. And the No One Left Behind buff is alright too. It's not a bad buff, not a super overwhelming buff, but every buff is appreciated. Next up, Distortion, Soul Survivor, and Off the Record. The buff towards Distortion is good. It's nice that you can regain the tokens again, otherwise the perk would be completely useless after a few minutes. Soul Survivor is also a really good buff, but I am scared it's gonna promote more selfish playstyles amongst in solo queue, which might be a terrifying thing to think about because solo queue is already so painful nowadays. And Off the Record is a great buff. Now, killers that have an easier way to make it back to the hook will have a harder time spot you if you use the perk, which I don't think is a bad perk. It might be a, a good perk against a blind or a nurse or killers like that, killers that, are quick to make it back and tunnel often. Yeah, I foresee a potential off the record meta, maybe, who knows. The next perks are Calm Spirit, Lethal Pursuer, and Botany Knowledge. Botany Knowledge is nice. I like it. It's a good buff. Calm Spirit, very underwhelming. Not a big fan. I mean, a buff is a buff. I will take it, but it's not gonna do anything. It needs more. It needs a lot more if you want to make people use it. And Lethal Pursuer, I like too. I like that it, you know, gives you a little bit after the first 9 seconds of the game. It's good buffs on these ones as well. And the last 2 perks, Dark Devotion and Colorophobia. Dark Devotion is a good buff. It didn't make sense that you had to use a basic attack to hit the obsession win. So it's nice for killers like Baba and Billy, etc. that they can just use their power with this perk. It's a good buff, and honestly, it should have never been a basic hit in general. And Colorophobia is a pretty good buff too. It's not too massive, nothing spicy, nothing fancy, and as someone who hates skill checks, it might be a little bit scary, but it might be exciting too. So yeah, good buff overall. I don't think it's gonna become meta and many people are gonna use it, but maybe they will, and I don't see an issue with it yet. Alright, those were all the perks that got buffed, that are not meta, and that I liked. Now to the non-meta perks that got buffed that I am not a fan of. Overcharge, Eruption, and Jolt. Now, it's not a mystery, I'm not a fan of anti-gen perks. And especially with a few changes that I'm gonna mention at the end of this video, I don't think buffing gen perks is needed, should be done. It sounds scary, and it sounds like we're just gonna head back into another anti-gen meta. I don't like it. I hope they don't go through, but yeah, not a fan at all of these ones. Next up, Scorch Hook, Gifter Pain, Phenophobia, and Scorch Hook Monster's Shrine. Now, I don't like the buffs of Scorch Hook, Gifter Pain, and Phenophobia for the same reasons as the previous perks. I don't like it. I don't like that they're gonna make it even more dreadful to do a certain action. It's gonna be obnoxious. Survivor is gonna be obnoxious if all these perks are gonna go through. And Monster Shrine, bad buff. What were the devs thinking? Why? You're making basement camping even more popular than it already is? It is actually ridiculous. Like, sure, it says then it will grant the faster entity progress X amount of percentage faster if the killer's not camping, but the killers don't care about that part. They only care about the fact that Scorch Hook perks are being able to be used on the basement hooks. It's a bad buff. It's saying, hey Babas, hey, here, have a perk to basement camp even heavier, or trappers. It's bad. I don't like it. I don't like that at all. Like 0% of me likes that buff. But what you gonna do about it? And the last 2 free perks that I don't like are Knockout, Pharmacy, and Deja Vu. Now, the Knockout buff says it all. I don't think I need to explain it. I don't understand why the devs are trying to buff slugging. Oh my god, I can already foresee my Nerfs games with this perk. Oh, that's awful. I don't get it. This should not make it live. If this makes it live, I am gonna be so absolutely shocked. I hate it. And of course, people are gonna wonder, why Pharmacy and Deja Vu? Let me explain why I think those are bad buffs. Pharmacy is a bad buff. I don't understand why they think it's a good buff. You being forced to be heard before you can go to your chest to get your medkit is awful, because at a lot of the times before you get heard, people have already gotten to the chest. They've already opened the chest. Sure, it will give you a medkit every time that you open the chest when being heard, but in reality, a lot of the times the chests are gonna be open already, and therefore you waste an entire perk slot. You don't need free green medkits. You just need one. Like, it's a bad buff. It's not even a buff. It truly is a nerf, even though they consider it as a buff. And Deja Vu would be a good buff, but it's not, because all it does is promoting free genning. It promotes the survivor that uses that perk to go to the generator closest to the gen they finished. It's awful. It's a bad. Honestly, the entire perk is bad. It should be the other way around. It should give you. It should indicate the generators that are the furthest away from you. But to give it extra speed, oh my god, are you wanting us to get free gen even more? If you don't know what free genning is, I will leave an anti-free gen guide on the top right corner. It's really bad. You need to learn it, because even a lot of people without deja vu, experienced players, newer players do it, and it's awful. So please go check out that video. But yeah, it's not a good buff. It's awful. And then the "we're gonna live forever" buff. I mean, it's not a buff. It's getting nerfed essentially. I mean, I understand why they're doing it. I think they should do it, but I feel like they should probably add something else onto the perk. I don't know. It's not a good buff. It's not really a buff. They don't really. I know it says under the list of buffs, but it's not really a buff. Clearly, I mean, it's not really a buff. I understand why they're doing it, but it's not a buff. Anyways, those were all the perks that are non-meta that will get buffed that I don't like. Now we're gonna move on to the meta perks that are getting nerfed. First, the perks that I'm a fan of. Surprisingly, I'm a fan of most of the nerfs onto the perks. Decisive Strike, Dead Art, and Spine Chill are no exception. As much as I am sad to see Dead Art go, this is gonna make it a little bit more skillful and more rewarding to actually pull it off. Less frustrating for a killer, I would assume. I am a little bit scared it's gonna be super buggy, but hopefully it's not gonna be buffy, and hopefully it's gonna be semi-doable. It's gonna also make it a little bit more mind gamey, which is kind of nice. So hopefully it goes well. I'm a little bit skeptical, but I do like it if I'm trying to put myself from an objective point of view. Decisive Strike, overall a good nerf. I like that you can't just taunt the killer anymore with your Decisive Strike and make risky plays when you get saved at the end. However, I don't agree with the reduction of the stun last. Like, why? You're making it. You wanna have killers stop tunneling, but then you're gonna make Decisive Strike less long, the stun duration, so killers are quicker and easier. They recover quicker and easier, so they can tunnel you quicker and easier. I don't understand. It doesn't make sense. They should have never changed that. Yeah, so it's a good nerf minus that part. And Spine Chill, I mean, Spine Chill's speed getting nerfed, it never made sense that Spine Chill had the speed. If I'm being honest, it never really made sense. So it makes sense that they're removing it. And it also kind of makes sense to make it a little bit harder for the survivors to see if the killer is actually coming at them, especially if you're a stealth killer. It makes a lot of sense, and it's nice. It's a nice nerf. Next up, Scorch Hook, Pain Resonance, Know It, aka Hex, No One Escapes Death, and Tinkerer. Now, many of you know that I'm a Know It enjoyer. I like Know It. I like when killers use Know It, and I wish more killers did. However, this tiny nerf makes a lot of sense, and it is a good nerf. It's nice that the survivors can see the perk eventually from a further range. Like, it starts off small and it grows bigger and bigger and bigger. That's nice because you're not gonna be endlessly searching for the perk. And it's also nice that you can see whether the perk is just next to the survivor that you're trying to save, and then you know you don't even have to try, because I mean, that's never gonna happen. It will never work. So it is a good nerf. I don't think it makes a massive change of the perk. I don't think it will do much damage. So it's a really good tiny nerf that I think people should be happy with. And yeah, I am even happy with it, even though I don't mind Know It as it is. Tinker is also a good nerf that I don't think is all too damaging. I don't think many people are gonna use it anymore after this, which I am completely okay with. It was really annoying to get the killer on the generator. I mean, I kind of like Tinker for the spooky effects, but I didn't like that Tinker could be parked on the same gen a billion times. So it's nice that they are removing that. I will say, after the nerf, if it's gonna go through, I think no one is gonna use it anymore, but I guess so be it. And Scorch Hook, Pain Resonance, it's a nice little buff. It's less than I wanted. It's not gonna make a big difference, but at least it's gonna be nice to not have killers stacking with Pop Goes the Weasel, for example, which is a very killers can still do that, but it's gonna be harder, you know, because the killer has no clue which generator got popped. So it's still annoying, and I still think it needs to get nerfed more, but it's something, and it's an improvement on what it was. So I take it. Then we have Corrupt Intervention, Pop Goes the Weasel, and Hex Rune. Now, I know that a lot of people are going to be pissed at the Hex Rune nerf, which partially I understand because, you know, sometimes the perk gets gone almost instantly. But then again, let's be honest, if it gets gone almost instantly, it was never a use of you anyways. So for the rune that lasts a long time, it was painful in the game, so it's a good nerf. It had to be done. Hopefully this will make people use rune less, because rune is honestly just really obnoxious. And yeah, it's a good nerf. Corrupt is honestly one of my favorite nerfs in this list. It's great. And I know it's gonna suck if you are a killer and you're gonna get someone down relatively fast that your perk is over. But then your perk has done what it's meant to do. The perk is meant to give you a little bit of extra time at the very beginning of the game to make plays. If you've gotten someone down almost relatively instantly, that means you've done the play. That means you have your pressure already, and that means your ball is rolling in the game right now. It's up to you to decide how that's gonna go further. It's up to you to play better with that. It's not up to Corrupt to still carry your ass that it does now, that is still blocked. It's really nice. It's a good perk. It will still help killers that need to set up, like Trapper and Hack, and slow killers like Hunters, whilst nerfing indirectly killers with high pressure like Nerfs and Blight. Big fan overall. Another one of my favorite is Pop Goes the Weasel. When Pop first came out, I actually really liked the perk. It promoted leaving the hook and rewarding killers for hooking people. But with the anti-gen meta, Pop is dreadful, especially with Pain Resonance. So this nerf is much needed, and honestly, I truthfully feel it is a perfect nerf for it. And then Borrowed Time. I mean, Borrowed Time makes sense. It's not really a nerf, it's just a change because of the base kit Borrowed Time that they implement that we talked about at the very beginning. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I like it. I think if you play Survived Friends, Borrowed Time is still going to be quite nice to give the extra buffs to the base kit Borrowed Time. If you play solo and you care a lot about your fellow survivors, it will still be a good perk. I don't think barbecue and chili, not barbecue, I don't think Borrowed Time is going to get used a lot anymore after this, but it is a nice change. And I mean, they had to change it because of the base kit Borrowed Time, but yeah, I like it. I like the change to it. And now onto the perks that got nerfed, and I don't like the nerf. Simple, Iron Will, and Self-Care. I mean, everyone knows that I am an Iron Will user. I've been an Iron Will user since 2016, even before Iron Will became popular, even before people started to understand the power of Iron Will. So it's naturally that subjectively I am not a fan of it. But even objectively, I am not a fan of it. And I know it's hard to probably assume that I'm being objective. Heck, I don't even believe that I'm being objective fully either. But with everything that killers have, sprint marks, blood, aura perks, everything they have, like hearing the footstep and such, I don't think Iron Will should have gotten nerfed this hard. It's really frustrating, and I honestly, truthfully think they absolutely smacked it into the ground. No one's gonna use it anymore. It's not gonna be beneficial at all anymore. And to top it off, they also made it so Iron Will doesn't work anymore when you're exhausted. Like, what? The perk is gone. The perk doesn't exist anymore. The nerfing, you know, how like 100%, 75%, etc. made sense, is annoying, don't think it was needed. But the being exhausted equals Iron Will doesn't work anymore, that's outrageous. That is honestly crazy. The perk is dead after this. It's really unfortunate. And you know, I'm trying to look at it from objectively, which is hard because I love Iron Will so much. And even when I was a killer main, I've been a killer main before, never had any issues with it. I don't think it should have gotten nerfed, in my personal opinion. And if it does, this is not the nerf, in my honest opinion. And now for self-care. I mean, self-care, I don't like the nerf, man. Why are they making self-care even more useless? One thing, like, no one in the higher elo really uses it. Self-care is not a great perk if you're higher elo. So why are they making a perk that actually helps newer players and they're nerfing it? It doesn't make sense. It's a bad nerf. Self-care, in matter of fact, I feel like self-care should have gotten buffed. Honestly, not really. I think self-care is fine where it is. Not really a good perk for higher players, which is fine. Good perk for newer players, which is great. I honestly, the nerf bugs a lot out of me. I feel really bad for the newer players who are gonna have to run medkits now, which they don't have the blood points for, or are just gonna be forced to run herd around, which means they're gonna go down faster, which means they're gonna just get killed faster, which means they have a lot less learning time in the game. It's honestly worrisome that they're nerfing self-care for the newer players, and if I were a new player, I would be upset. I don't even use self-care, so I don't really care about it for my sake, but I'm upset for the newer players' sake. It's so important that people can self-care. If you can't self-care, newer players are just gonna be A, more immersed, or B, they die quicker, which means they have a lot less time to learn the game. Neither are ideal. Both are really annoying, so it's not a good nerf. I don't like it at all. Hopefully it doesn't go through. And yeah, that's that, honestly. And I mean, the nerf is on barbecue and chili, which is the equivalent of We're Gonna Live Forever. Understandable, don't really like it. I feel like they should have just reduced the amount of blood points you would have gotten, like, you know, instead of, I don't know, 100%, 10% or something a little bit. Like, it doesn't even have to be a massive blood point gain, just a little bit. They didn't have to remove it fully, in my personal opinion. So I don't really like them. I still feel barbecue and chili is a really good perk, but I'm afraid that a lot of people are not going to use it anymore because most people did use it only for blood points. So I feel like they should have just toned down on the blood point percentage that you would have gotten instead. But yeah, those are all the 39 perks that BHVR is planning to nerf, buff, or change. Overall, I'm very happy with everything BHVR has announced. The overall gameplay changes and the nerfs and buffs towards the perks. Of course, as you heard, not everything is ideal, but as this is gonna be tested on the P2B, they're more than likely planning on changing a few things as we go. I will express my concerns here right now though. I'm scared that slugging is gonna become a bigger meta now. With the slugging perks being buffed and the base kit board time edition, killers might wanna avoid that. I'm afraid that the gen perks aren't nerfed enough, making it so killers will continue to stack them on a build, and with the already overall changes to the gen speed, it's gonna make it even more impossible to get out of the game or to get a gen done. And last but not least, I am terrified that camping from the start of the game is gonna become even more of an issue, because now with the gen speed even going slower, it punishes killers even less to just wait it out. Wait until the survivor is dead. There's no punishment anymore because there's no way the free survivors in the game can get all the generators up. I'm very scared of these, and I predict that this might become the meta if these changes go through. So I do hope that BHVR will look into them, and if these metas will come true, I hope they will nerf them relatively soon. But in the end, everything we discussed today isn't fully set in stone, so we're gonna have to wait and see. And I'm curious about all of you. What do you think about the things that we talked about in this video? Any opinions about a certain perk? Or predictions what this game is gonna become? Let me know in the comment section down below. And that was it for today's video, which means I'm gonna ask you to do the things every YouTuber always asks you to do. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. And see you all next time. Bye bye!